It's been a couple of weeks by the time this episode comes out since the movie that we're talking about has been released. At least I'm assuming so, unless this comes out before I'm planning on it coming out. Either case, I think it's going to be plenty of time, so there's going to probably be some spoilers, and if you are a fan of the miniseries that was done in the early 90s, then you already know the story. Or if you've ever read the Stephen King book, you pretty much know the story as well. But this episode we are talking about another new movie, 2019's It, Chapter 2.
Wow, we're hitting the new ones this year, man. It's crazy.
Yeah, we got another new one coming up, too, in a couple of weeks, probably. So that'd be cool.
Unbelievable. Yeah, we're usually hitting all the 70s and 80s films, but now it's like all these modern movies. But yeah, we finally saw it. And I want to start out real quickly. One of the things that I had said was that It Chapter 2, my prediction was it was going to be the horror movie of the year. And I know we've still got a few months left before the year ends, and we've got this new Black Christmas, which we won't talk about, I guess. But and so far, and like looking back at some of the horror movies this year that that I've seen and the newer ones and whatnot, I'm gonna stand behind that. I'm gonna say so far it's been the horror movie of the year.
Well, I will agree that it is definitely better than the other turd remakes that we saw this year. That is for sure. Because Pet Sematary was absolutely horrible. Child's Play was... I'm still, I don't know on Child's... I mean, it was better than Child's Play, that's for sure. But yeah, I will give you that. It is definitely the horror movie of the year so far. I still am... it is just the beginning of September, so we have a good... What's that? We have all of September, October, November, December yet, so we got 4 months.
Yeah, we got a ways to go.
There's some potential stuff coming down the line that might beat it out.
And there's still that Rob Zombie movie. I know you got your eyes on that.
Yeah, that comes out in, a week and a half? Something like that? 2 weeks?
Is that coming out in theaters?
It's going to be, in theaters for, a day.
Huh, okay.
So, yeah, I don't know why they do that. I mean, I can't imagine that something like that would make... I mean, maybe it'll make money, I guess. I don't know, but... You see that, too, with some of these, streaming movies where, limited release where it'll be in a theaters for a week, but I don't know if they do that for some sort of something. I don't know if when regular movies, when I say regular movies, I'm talking non-horror movies, when dramas and stuff do that. If they do that, if they have to do that for Oscar contention or something, I don't know. I have no idea why they do that. But yeah, when Three from Hell comes out, it is playing in theaters one night, and I think it's one showing that night, or maybe it's 2 showings or something. And of course, I don't live in a big city, so it's not going to be around me unless I want to drive an hour to see it, or an hour and a half or whatever.
So finally we get the second chapter of It, and I know we've talked a little bit about our history with it. I mean, you read the book. I never read the book. I saw the TV series. I mean, I don't think to be honest with you, to this day, I don't think I've seen the full thing, the complete series. I mean, I've seen a lot of it, but I haven't seen the full thing. But I really, really liked the original It Chapter 1. The remake or whatever you want to call it, reboot, whatever.
Yeah, let's not get into that whole thing again. Yeah. People bitching about that for another 3 months.
I thought that
was not a remake. Okay, dude.
I thought It Chapter 1 was great. I loved it. It was I thought it was really well done. I mean, for taking, what I know of the source material, I think they did the best they possibly could. And I knew with going into this one, it wasn't going to be so much about the kids. Obviously, it was going to be the adults. And I knew that might, take away some of the charm of the film, just because the kids really really did make the original. And yeah, I really enjoyed this. It was a long movie. It was really long, and it went by quickly, but there's just a lot packed into this film. And it's pretty much kind of what I expected, or it's just a very well done horror movie where it just kind of, you could feel the Stephen King, backbone to it. I mean, this definitely feels like they pulled a lot of the stuff right out of his novel, even though I haven't read this particular novel. Just kind of the way the writing went, some of the storylines went, and the characters, it just really felt, yeah, this is definitely something Stephen King would write.
The only thing that I will say with this, and this actually isn't a gripe towards this movie, but is because I am familiar with the original miniseries. I've seen it a bunch of times, and I've read the book, I don't know, 3-4 times, something like that. I mean, I've read it more than once.
Wow.
And so I am familiar with the story. The way that this movie was done, again, and I'm pretty sure I said this when we did our It episode back in 2017, was that the way that this movie was shot and the way that it was presented really should have been the way that the first one was done, in my opinion, because that is the way that the book is, and of course the original miniseries was that way too. And this movie actually starts off the way that the book does and the way that the original miniseries does, where Mike is kind of doing his little narration thing, and stuff is starting to happen again in Derry, and then he goes through his notes, and he calls the losers up to come back in. So to me, this movie being the way that it was actually took away from the first movie for me.
Really?
Yeah, like when I left the theater, that was kind of my initial thought was, well, the first movie now kind of is obsolete, really. I mean, I almost feel like I know that there are rumors and there's, all this crap going on around on the internet, like, oh, they're going to make another one probably, they're going to turn this into a franchise. And there's a ton of stuff, there's a ton of stuff in the book that, of course, that they never got a chance to touch on because the book is like 1,200 pages or something. It's ridiculous. I personally would almost like, when I left this one, I was kind of like, you know what, I would like another movie of the stuff. I would like the first one redone and done this way.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So when you saw it, you felt like this is enough. Like you don't need the first one. You get if you've seen this one.
Well, to me, because this one starts off the way that the book and everything else does. So like to me, when this started off, I was like, okay, here we go. Now we're watching it. So like the first one kind of, and I'm sure that somebody actually probably will do this at some point. Because, I mean, it happens a lot. Like me and you were talking about this fan Halloween movie that's out there, the Halloween Deluxe.
Oh, yeah.
I would guarantee you that when this is available, like digitally, that it might not be readily available. I mean, but I bet you'll be able to, it'll be lurking around on different sites to download and stuff, that there will be a fan edit of it that will kind of put it in chronological order.
Right.
With the book, where they take the two movies and splice them together.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they'll eventually.
Or even maybe whoever the studio is will kind of be like, oh, you know what, we should do that and let's put it out on a special DVD and charge everybody another $30 for it.
Yeah, right. A different edit of it, sure.
But I mean, so that doesn't take away from this movie at all. It's just that's one of the things, because I had said that before. Because I knew when they did the first one, it was all kids. I knew, and me and you talked about it, and I think I said it when we did that episode, I was like, there's no way that they're going to do a sequel to this, and it's going to be just them as adults, and they're not going to show the kids at all. There's no way they're going to do that.
Yeah, they're going to have to for the storyline. Right.
So, I mean, and because of the way that they did that, like you had said, there's a lot crammed into this movie, but they left a ton out. This actually probably is my only actual gripe against this movie, is the Henry Bowers character. they might as well just left him out of this story in the second one, because, I mean, he was kind of pointless in this one. They didn't really explain anything. They kind of explained that he got arrested for his dad, but in the original story, you know, because he kills his dad and then he goes off and then all this stuff happens when the kids beat Pennywise, and then he washes up into the barrens and stuff, and there is all the bodies and stuff in the barrens. Well, when they arrest Henry Bowers, they not only charge him for his dad's murder, they charge him for the murders of all these kids that had happened, you know, in the original story.
Really?
In the original story, it's in the 50s or whatever. You know, so in this one, it would have been in 1989. But they kind of left that out. I mean, maybe it's kind of implied, but I mean, they arrest him for the murder of his dad, but they don't say anything about everything else.
Interesting, yeah.
And then
they don't talk about that at all, I don't think.
And then he's in this movie for like 3 minutes compared to, you know, the first one. He's kind of a main character in the first one. And so to me, it was kind of like they were trying to squeeze so much stuff in there. They were like, oh, we got to throw him in there anyway, so we'll just make it real minor. And so, I mean, to me, they could have left him out of this one and you wouldn't have noticed.
Yeah, there was a lot going on in this film for sure. And even with 3 hours, you could tell it was like, you know, they pushed a lot in there. And that's the thing too, kind of going into this film with where I didn't really know. I don't know the source material. I don't know the novel, and I really don't know the TV series enough to I didn't know the ending and all of that. So it was kind of for me like going in sort of in that way, where this movie is basically my first time seeing the beginning and ending of this story. I thought they did a really good job. I thought it kind of wrapped itself up pretty well. I do want to take time to mention some of the CGI, which there's a lot of CGI in this film, and I know we talk a lot about the whole practical effects versus CGI. And what'd you think about that? I mean, it seemed like, you know, starting from that point where they're at the Japanese restaurant and, you know, the fortune cookies come to life. It like, you know, right at that point, you know, we're starting to see like, you know, it almost seemed like a Harry Potter movie or something.
There is a lot of it in this movie, that's for sure.
There is.
And
like,
there's a lot more of it in this movie than there was in the first one, even just in terms of Pennywise himself. You know, there's a lot of stuff that in the first one was either practical effects or that was just makeup and stuff, to whereas this one, not every scene, but a lot of scenes, it seemed like they altered Pennywise somehow, you know, whether it was, and some of it was a little, I mean, it's, you know, I know that a lot of people say that CGI nowadays is near perfect and all this stuff, and, you know, you can watch video games and stuff and it's pretty much like watching real TV, but there's a few scenes that it's not as good as you think it should be. You know, there's the one scene where, for whatever reason, they like elongate his head and kind of like twist it a little bit, but he's still the clown, and you're kind of like, oh, that looks kind of goofy. And then the other thing in this movie that they did, which I'm sure you've read about, and if you're listening to this episode, you've probably heard about this too, is with the kids, because it, you know, it was filmed 2 years after the first one was filmed, that the kids all aged, and so they de-aged the kids.
Right.
And so knowing that, you're kind of looking for that, and there's even a few scenes to where you can kind of pick up that, oh yeah, that kid's face is fake. I mean, it's not a lot. I mean, a lot of it's really good, but there's a few things where you can see like, oh yeah, that's fake. Kind of weird,
especially when you're looking for it.
Right.
They actually did it. I mean, this is a you know, high budget studio film, so you know, I know that you're going into this film. There's going to be a lot of CGI and a lot of effects, and it was. I mean, it was good. I mean, they look good, but at the same time, you know, there is this thing that kind of pulls you out a little bit when you see like animated things. Like I think of like that kid's head at the end. You know, when like, it reminded me of The Thing. It's that scene very similar to The Thing where this head, like,
oh yeah, I mean that's pretty much straight out of The Thing.
right.
Yeah,
And it just was like, it was again one of those things where compare that to, John Carpenter's version. Hey, we connected this to John Carpenter somehow. So like where he had this practical effects, and it just seemed more like real than this one. It was just, there was a bit of that cartoony feel to it, and I guess that's really, I mean, and then again, and the ending too, especially the ending with Pennywise. I mean, that's very, very cartoonish, and those like big giant, like it seemed like like the leper was a big thing in the first movie, and that was all practical. I think in the original film, wasn't it? In Chapter 1,
it probably was. I mean, you would assume so.
But in this, like you think of like the old woman, and that was clearly CGI, and then stuff like that where it's just like these like monsters chasing people, and I guess the only way to really do it is CGI for a lot of it. But
speaking of the old woman scene, because this is something I wanted to bring up.
Yeah.
So when this movie comes around, in however long it takes movies to make it onto, like, say even cable, not HBO, but say like Sci-Fi or like FX or something, where, I mean, I know they show like mild swear words and stuff, where they say like shit and goddamn or whatever, but they don't drop the F-bomb or anything.
Right.
I think they don't maybe they do now, but I'm pretty sure that they don't show nudity. So do you think when that giant naked old lady monster comes running out, are they just going to blur that out, or are they going to like crop it to where they only show her head instead of showing these? Because that's one thing with this movie was I was not expecting to see monster boobies.
I think, man, I haven't watched an edited movie for so long now. It's like I don't know what they do anymore. I mean, I'm trying to think like, well, then there's like the Walking Dead, and they probably show stuff like with zombies and all that. So I'm guessing they're going to show it, probably because it's more of a creature thing than it is like a person.
That could be.
So what did you think of stuff like that, where you would see like the old woman monster, or like Paul Bunyan, the statue coming to life? Were these kind of like?
I mean, that's kind of the way stuff was in the book.
Okay.
I mean, it was like over the top stuff to where, you had like in the original miniseries and stuff where, I mean, well, he didn't go overboard so much in that one, but I mean, that one was all practical effects, but it's not like they were seeing stuff like, just like the leper or the Wolfman or something where you could do it with practical effects. I mean, the stuff that they were seeing was like horrific stuff.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, it definitely was a little cartoony, but I mean, for the most part, a lot of it was done fairly well. But again,
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, there are a couple of things, like I said, there's a few things where, again, going back to the kids thing, just because you had heard about it, so of course you're trying to like, oh, can I tell? Oh yeah, I can tell there. And
yeah, with the kids, yeah.
Yeah, and so, but I mean, for the most part, and then there was some of the stuff too where you're not sure if it was done with computer stuff or not. Like the scene where they show kind of the Pennywise character without his makeup, but he's applying the makeup and stuff, and like he cuts his face. Was that digital, or was that, did they do that real? I mean, because it looked real, so stuff like that where you're like, oh, okay. I mean, when you have this giant spider clown thing running around, of course that's fake. I mean, it looks a lot better than the Scorpion King did in that one Mumby movie, but
oh no, absolutely. No, I mean, it's definitely well done. To me, sometimes though, some of that, like that ending there with like the spider clown thing, one of the things about that is, yeah, it looks good. I mean, we're talking top of the line special effects here. It's gonna on a high budget film. It's like almost like I think to myself, had they have done it with like a practical effects and shot it a little differently, I mean, shot it more like where like it's maybe not so in your face, because it the way that whole scene kind of plays out is very much like a video game in my opinion. It's like where the clown's like chasing the kids around the cave, and it just has that feel to it, like you're looking at animation. Whereas, like, had they maybe have done something practical and maybe just shot like the legs or shot something like that, or you wouldn't see as much, but at the same time it might have this more kind of horrific, realistic approach to it. But I mean, nowadays you can, I mean, I'm sure that audiences probably want to see it this way. So
yeah, and there's no way that the studio is going to spend the, not necessarily the money, because I can't imagine that it's with as much as they say CGI costs, which I'm sure it does, because anytime you have like CGI stuff, you have like a whole, like, whatever the CGI company is working on it, they have a whole team of people working on it, and they're probably charging $200 an hour per person that's working on it. So, or if not more, but so I can't imagine that it would be more expensive to do practical effects. I would imagine it would actually be a lot cheaper to do practical effects. But in the long run, to where, you do that scene, like the end scene, where I'm sure they shot the actor stuff, which I would assume a lot of it was probably green screen. They might have been set work for the most part, but there probably was a fair amount of green screen there. That I'm sure they shot that for probably a good couple weeks, if not longer. But could you imagine how? I mean, if you want to add the time consumption of doing practical effects into that, then you're probably talking, adding like quadrupling it probably.
Right. No, yeah, you're probably right there.
So, I mean, I guess in the long run, maybe it is, maybe it comes out to be the same if you have to, you're paying. I mean, the actors are getting whatever their contracted thing is, but when you have to pay, the cast, or not the cast, but the crew and stuff, who's all probably hourly and stuff, then it probably adds up. But
yeah, and a lot of that stuff too, that over the top scary stuff with the monsters and the big, creatures and the giant spider and all that stuff, it's cool and all, but to me, I think probably the most effective scene with Pennywise, in my opinion, like the scene that I was like, yeah, that was well done, that was creepy, was underneath the bleachers. Like that whole scene right there probably was my favorite scene of the whole film, because that's like the Pennywise I'm thinking of. That's the same one that was inside the in the sewer, and all that. That was just so well done. And I think that stuff like that I kind of connect to more in a horror movie, like more like that kind of creepiness than like the full out special effects where it's just like, spider clown, chasing the kids around and
spider clown.
But I mean, it's cool, and I know that's the story, and I get it, so I'm not like bashing it or anything. But like those scenes, like underneath the bleachers, was really effective. I mean, I thought the scene in the funhouse was pretty cool, but that's like, and then the scene when Bill sticks his arm in the sewer, and then all those like little hands come and grab him, and you see all those eyes under there.
Yeah,
stuff like that I thought was great, and that to me those were the most effective scenes.
Yeah, I will say that this one, the other thing that I really did like with this one that they didn't do as much in the first one, and they did get a little bit of flack for it in the first one, because even though the first one, it did have kids and stuff, I mean, they obviously showed Georgie getting his arm ripped off. Sorry, spoiler if you've never seen the first one yet. But whereas in the mini series, they kind of just alluded that something happened to Georgie. But other than Georgie getting it in the first one, they kind of steered clear of like having little kids get attacked on screen anyway. I mean, I know people were missing and stuff, and they did show some of the older kids getting it and stuff. But this one, they kind of went full bore with the kids. I mean, how many kids got killed in this one, like on screen? Was it 2 or 3? Maybe it was just 2, I guess. But I mean, it was even more brutal than than Georgie. I mean, these kids, like, Georgie got his arm pulled off and then got sucked into the sewer. Like, these kids got killed in this movie. And then, then there's a few other scenes that were pretty, the opening scene in the movie, with Adrian and his boyfriend at the fair, that scene.
Oh, yeah.
That scene's pretty brutal as well. So to me, this movie, not only am I going to say this movie's better than the first one, but it is even a little bit more gritty than the first one. And to me, it was way more scarier than the first one. Even though some of the stuff, like you said, was maybe a little bit more cartoonish. Mm-hmm. The thing with the first one was, I remember after we saw it, we came home, and when it came out on DVD, I got my wife to watch it because, we were all telling her, I'm like, it's really not scary. There's like one jump scene in the movie. And really, in the first one, there really is only like one like true like jump scare, and that's the scene where they're like in the garage and they have the the slideshow thing going, and then like he's like giant jumps out of the screen. You're like, oh shit! And in this one, almost every time he's on screen, you're like, he's gonna jump. Oh god damn it! It was multiple times in this one, and it was gorier for sure. There was a lot more blood. There was obviously a lot more blood. You had this one rivals because what weren't they saying? Wasn't that one of the things when they filmed this that this was like the most blood ever in a movie?
I heard that the woman who played Beverly said something like that.
Okay,
something she was saying recently that she kind of released that.
Because there was a lot of blood in this.
Well, there was a lot of blood in the first one too, like with the train scene. But I guess technically this one would probably have more.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. This one was definitely far more brutal than the first one. And I actually just watched an interview with the director Andy Muschietti, and they were asking him like, why'd you put that opening scene in there? Because it's so brutal. And he was like, well, it was in King's book, and I wanted people to get an idea that we're talking about, we're trying to show the evil in the people in the town, not only in with the clown, but that there was this darkness and this evil in the people as well. That they were just there were some people just as evil as the clown, and it really kind of took. That opening scene really makes the tone of this film really dark. Like you're going into a dark film. And I think that kind of, set the stage for, oh, wow, we're really this isn't just like a clown popping up out of a closet or something. This is it's going to be a horror film, like what a real horror film is, like where leaves you kind of feeling uneasy inside. And I know Stephen King puts stuff like that in his books, like that really kind of, that make you, it sits in your head a little bit too long. Like you're like, oh, wow, that was kind of rough, you know what I mean?
Right.
And I think that's what he was trying to do with this movie, was give you some of that here and there, and then and also some of the domestic abuse with Beverly, like that kind of sits with you a little longer than you want, you're comfortable with. But I think the point was to really kind of give you the feel for like what's going on with these characters, and it works.
Yeah, the only thing with the whole Beverly thing is that was actually toned down quite a bit than even what it was in the original miniseries.
It was toned down?
Yeah, really? It was, because in the original miniseries they touch on a little bit more, because her husband has, even in the book and in the original miniseries, he has a little bit more of a role than he does in there. And they kind of explain that, this has been, this abuse has been going on for a long time. It's not just this one time. I would agree that there is, it's definitely, there's a lot more, definitely grittier than the first one for sure.
I think like the opening scene with Georgie was really probably the most disturbing scene in the original, probably, and mostly because it was a kid. Where this one, there's definitely a lot more. Well, I guess some of the bullying scenes too in the first one, those kind of, those are kind of rough to watch. But yeah, this one, part 2, definitely takes it up a notch in the uncomfortable department. But yeah, I ultimately, you got to say, like the acting was superb. the actors they chose for those roles for those kids were like spot on. I mean, you could totally see that those were like that would be those kids, like, 30 years later or whatever. And I thought the acting was great, the writing was great, the tone of the film was great. To be honest with you, in terms of Stephen King's stories, and again, I'm judging some of these by movies because I haven't read all of his books. I've read maybe a handful of his books. This probably is not my favorite of his stories, because it does get so weird. It gets a little bit out there, and it's it's not a very tight story. It's a little bit. There's a lot going on, like you said, and there's a whole lot of stuff, that I read about too about the book where. That goes into Pennywise's origins and everything, and that gets really weird.
Yeah.
And so I didn't. So some of that stuff is so far out there, and I imagine it'd be interesting to read that in a book. But putting it in a movie probably wouldn't be
right
as good. But I did like how they kind of handled the origin of them. I mean, that's one of those things too, where let's throw this huge thing in and condense it as best we can to tell the story of how we're gonna this and that. So it's almost a little bit hard to follow all of that, because so he's this and he came from here, and then there's this Indian tribe and that they tried doing this, getting rid of him, and there's all these different subplots and background, and then you have to do it this way, and if you don't do it this way it doesn't work, and so it's kind of it's not a. I mean, this book is so immense, and the story. I mean, that there's so many pieces to it that I think they did a great job putting it together the best they could in 2 films.
The only thing with that opening scene in this one, and again, this kind of goes back to just a personal preference, is you had these kids beating up this homosexual couple, and then those kids are never in anything in the rest of the movie, and you're kind of did Pennywise get him? I hope he got him.
What happened in the novel with those kids?
I don't remember. I'm pretty sure that they probably got killed or something.
Okay.
I'd have to go back and look. But that's one of those things where, of course, this, like you said early on, this movie is almost 3 hours, so by the time the movie's over, you kind of forget about it until later on. Then you're like, "Oh shit, nothing ever did happen to those guys."
And I think that probably is probably the biggest, I don't know if I want to say flaw or a problem with this film is there's probably a little bit too much going on. But you're taking, like you said, I mean, how many pages of this book,
right,
and putting it into a movie. So you get to stuff like that. You get an opening like that there's never a resolve, and then you get a backstory of who Pennywise is, and then you never fully understand it. You just kind of take pieces of it with you, and then you get the whole ending. So I mean, there's so much to this that this must have been a very difficult screenplay to write. I imagine. I can't even imagine sitting down with the book and saying, okay, we got to write this into a movie. What do we put in, and what do we keep? What do we take out? How do we tell this part of the story? Yeah, I can imagine it being, man, I can't even. That sounds like a huge chore, trying to figure that out. Even in 5 hours or 5.5 hours or however much this chapter 1 and 2 together were, it's there's just so much there that you never fully. It's just a huge story. I mean, going back to what we talked about, with Pet Sematary. Pet Sematary's a pretty tight story. There's even in the novel, you can condense it more. There's not as much going on, and there's not as many characters with all these different things going on in their lives. So you can kind of take that story, whereas it does kind of play better as a novel, just because you get more of the backstory and more of this and more of that. But you can still sort of condense it enough into a movie where it works. For this one, man, it's just it's such an epic tale that you just man.
So I know we've done this on this show in the past, previous times. So this one I want to throw out to you and see which one you would go for. And so this is Who Would You Rather It edition. And it's both Stephen King related.
Oh, okay.
So, would you rather have Sissy Spacek from Carrie covered in blood, or Jessica Chastain, or Chastain, however the hell you say her last name, from It Chapter 2 covered in blood?
Oh, man. Let me think here. I'm gonna go Sissy Spacek.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. That's sort of something that's come with age, I think, because I would never have said that 10 years ago.
Well, and I would like to point out to the listeners of this show, this is coming from a man who earlier today, when we were getting ready to watch It Chapter 2, and the latest trailer for the Terminator movie came on, and you had 184-year-old Linda Hamilton in there, and he leans over, and she's looking pretty good, man.
Yeah, I think it's like, my brain still holds on to that 1984 memory of her from that original film. And it's like I'm seeing that more than I'm seeing. Oh, yeah, oh, that's funny.
So to go back, to take this back into the reality a little bit, though, the one thing as you get older and you're watching movies like this, and you know that these folks had been crawling through the sewer, and then they've fallen into water. And then you had Ben and Beverly, who both were like in their own little mini purgatory, and they come out and they're, kind of laying on top of each other, and Beverly's all covered in blood, and Ben is like, "Ooh, yeah, baby." And I'm like, she's got a stink. I mean, they didn't kiss or anything at that scene, so at least they had that going for them. Because I mean, I think I would have been like, I can't do it if they would have smooched.
Right.
But all of them, I mean, I know they kind of joke about it later on, but can you imagine? I mean, you're crawling through the sewer a couple of times, and like Bill was completely submerged in water. It's just like, you gotta smell like just ass.
Yeah, absolutely. That was totally like, they're like from neck deep in sewage water.
So gross. But yeah, I think, like you said too earlier, because I had read, a couple of things about that beforehand, about, there was definitely the Thing tribute in this movie,
gotcha.
But nobody ever said anything about Carrie, and I kept thinking, in that scene, I'm like, that's obviously, maybe it's not intentional, but I'm sure it was. Like, here's a nod to Carrie.
So, what'd you think of the Stephen King cameo?
That had to have been his longest cameo ever.
He is looking old.
Well, he is old.
He was he was like a bony, skinny old man.
Yeah, he's up there too. He's like got to be like, what is he, like 72 or something?
Yeah, he's got to be, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. That was a nice shot of him doing that cameo as the antique store owner.
And I was trying to, I don't think he was in the first one.
I don't think so either, yeah.
Ever. Because, he's kind of like Stan Lee a little bit, where he makes cameo, not in everything, but in a lot of his stuff.
He hasn't done too many as of recent.
Right, yeah. I was just going to say that. I don't think he was in the new Pet Sematary.
He was in the old Pet Sematary.
Yeah, he was in the old Pet Sematary. The other thing that I had read about, too, was that supposedly somebody from the miniseries was supposed to be in this movie. Huh. But I didn't ever catch who that was, because I was kind of looking for it, but I don't know. I mean, obviously it wasn't Harry Anderson, but I didn't see anybody else. I wasn't sure if and maybe it was just like some cameo kind of thing, like somebody was in the background somewhere. But I mean, at least that's what I thought I heard, that somebody from the miniseries was going to be in this one.
I think I read that too. I think that I saw that as well. But I'm not as familiar with the miniseries and the characters in it that I could be as easy to point them out, you know. Yeah, I really did enjoy it though. I want to say, like, you know, and again, I think the It Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 are probably going to be like these movies. Like, we're going to look back and say, you know, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, they're going to be those classic horror films that, you know, are right up there with, you know, some of the stuff that we've been talking about, you know, from our childhood. I think, you know, kids that grew up with these It movies are going to, you know, you're going to go to Walmart, you know, 20 years from now, and it's going to be October, and in the Halloween section, there's going to be It, you know, whatever the next. See, then I don't even think there's going to be like Blu-rays or whatever the, what's the 4K and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Some kind of, whatever the next thing is, those movies are going to be available there. Actually, you know, this is what it's going to be. You're going to walk into Walmart 20 years from now, or Target, and there's going to be It Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 in a fake DVD case. With like drawings of discs coming out the side. And it's going to be, you know, you're going to open it up and it's going to be whatever, like a tiny little computer chip inside there or something.
Well, the rate that things are going anymore, in 20, 30 years, Target's not going to be a physical store anyway.
Yeah, right, exactly.
I mean, everything's going to be somehow, you're going to click some button and it's just going to be like the Jetsons, and it's just going to pop up on your table.
Right, exactly. So, yeah, we won't even have that at that point. But yeah, I think It Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, these are definitely classics. I mean, I put these, and these are really well done adaptations of Stephen King work. I think it's, I mean, you think of like The Shining, like where that is now. Like, you look back and, I mean, that's a Stanley Kubrick classic. I mean, that's like a piece of art, and I think these It films are probably going to fall in line with that type of that level, to be honest with you, down the road here. Or Carrie.
Right.
I mean, that was, again, another classic film. That's another one. Pet Sematary, I know the original, I personally think that's my favorite one, but it's a little campier. It's a little, it's not quite as on that level, I don't think, but I still think it's a great film. But I think that, I mean, these It movies are just so well done.
In 20 or 30 years, there's probably going to be people pissed off because they're remaking them.
Yeah. They're going to do like a reboot or if they do this as a franchise, that'd be kind of interesting. Because, one thing that with the original It, one of the big comparisons was they compared the, Pennywise and the whole storyline to A Nightmare on Elm Street, which I saw a lot. I could definitely see the comparisons there. And that's kind of funny, like with these films, is that, like, like you watch like A Nightmare on Elm Street, just as an example, and you've got like the scenes where the characters have this time where they meet up with Freddy, and they always die and they get killed. They go through some like horrific dream experience and then they end up dead. The weird thing about these It movies is it's like all of the characters go through these experiences, but they always come out of them alive. Like, it's like they go through and have this little nightmare and then they come out. And it's just, oh, that was just a dream, or that was just a hallucination or a vision or whatever. And then, I mean, like, really, I mean, I don't want to give away who dies and who doesn't, but when you look at the body count to this film, compare that to like, it's definitely, you can definitely say that it's not a slasher film. Right.
Yeah. I mean, and of course, again, the movies don't touch on this stuff like they do in the book and stuff, to where, but again, the main characters, it's not really different with the main characters though. But that's one of the things in this one, in the second one, that they, they kind of allude to it a little bit, but in the first one they did kind of bring it up more and more, where they had all the missing kid posters all over the place, and there was so many of them and stuff, and to where in this one they had, presumably the opening scene happens, and then Mike hears about it, and he's like, oh crap, it's happening again. And then they don't really ever mention, except for, the couple of things that we do see, like the under the bleachers scene and then in the fun house, you're not really led to believe that Pennywise is out there plucking all these kids off of the streets like he was, in the original story.
Right.
But
Okay.
yeah, so that's kind of happening in the background. But yeah, like you said, like the main characters, yeah, I mean, it's not, it's not like your typical like slasher movie where, you would get to the end of this and Beverly is the sole survivor.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, because it just doesn't happen that way. It's like they have these horrific experiences, but they're all sort of more like the end. They come out of it alive.
Right.
But yeah, and that is one thing too. Like I did now my thing was like just in the back of my head of what I thought the story was, and obviously I didn't read the book, but was that when Mike calls the losers, I was thinking that what was happening was kids were starting to disappear again.
Yeah, it could have been, because it definitely, I mean, he was following it, but they just didn't really, I mean, it's one of those things where you kind of have to get to that conclusion on your own in this, to where, without them flat out saying it.
I see. Yeah, because they didn't really, it was like, you got that beginning scene, but that was like where it kind of like, started everything off. But that was kind of surprised me too, because, that guy he wasn't like, I mean, he was like what, maybe in his 20s, or was he a teenager? I don't even know.
No, he would have been, I think he would have been older because they were talking about moving, so.
Oh, that's right, yeah. So, because I thought like, I was kind of surprised by that because I thought Pennywise was more of like this sort of after kids only kind of thing. And so that's why I was like, that's interesting. Like I thought like it would start off like, kids would start disappearing, or it would all just be about that. But, with the whole clown thing and everything. But, well, anyhow, should we rate this thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm going with a big, big thumbs up. Again, it's, it is not it's not my favorite Stephen King story. That still goes to Pet Sematary, but this was a very well done film, and it definitely wrapped up everything from the first film. I thought it ended great. I thought the acting was great, the directing was great. It was a great storyline. I love what's his name, Bill Skarsgård. I don't even know how to pronounce his last name.
Bill Skarsgård.
Skarsgård.
Yeah,
and I thought he did a great job as Pennywise. I think he may become the next like horror icon down the road. Maybe, who knows? Maybe 10 years down the road we'll have Pennywise decorations to put up in our windows on Halloween. Only that his version.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because we already have Tim Curry stuff all over the place.
Well, there you go. So I'm gonna give it a big thumbs up. Yeah, you got to see it.
Yeah, I'll agree completely. I give this one a thumbs up for sure. I wouldn't say my expectations were low going into this, but they were lowered a little bit because I was reading some of the initial, not in-depth reviews, but I did see from some folks that were saying it wasn't as good as the first one. So, and the first one, when we originally saw it, I was like, yeah, that's great. But then I watched it a couple times afterwards, and I kind of was like, you know what? To me, it's not as good as the miniseries. So, again, because it was kind of missing something, and to me, it was missing the adults, because that's the story.
Oh, right.
So, but when this one came out, I was like, yo, yes, this is it. This is the story. Awesome. So, but yeah, I'll go ahead and give it a thumbs up as well.
Awesome.